Welcome to Crimson Guitars. Now we are currently in the middle of building this custom Robert Fripp model, and I've reached the stage where I need to work out what I'm doing with the electronics, or at least the layout of these things. Now every single instrument that we build is utterly custom and customizable to suit you as a client, and no more so, my English is terrible. Nowhere is this more evident than the electronics, and we will try things that a lot of people won't, especially a lot of smaller builders. And I'm going to stop scratching my back now. Let us continue. On this instrument we are building three completely separate systems. We're building four different systems in actually. Okay, the basic magnetic pickups, volume control, and a three-way toggle switch, and that is nice and simple. We are also building in a three-band active electronics tone circuit, so effectively bass, mid and treble control with a toggle with a little mini switch. It will probably be a push-pull or a push-push switch on the master volume control to make your guitar either passive or active. And yes, that's going to be fun. So that's one battery there. We are then putting in the Fernandez sustainer system. This is a Robert Fripp guitar. It would not be the same without one of them. And that doesn't have too much on the front of the guitar, at least. You've got two toggle switches, one to select your mode, and one to turn it on or off, and an intensity control for the sustainer. And then when it starts getting really fun, we are going with the phenomenally impressive Ghost acoustic and MIDI system, so the hexaphonic and the acoustophonic piezo and MIDI preamps, and that gives you a MIDI volume control, a MIDI up and down toggle switch to control your synth or whatever you happen to be plugged into, and that selects up and down through the patches. And I'm going to try not to look at my notes. And a MIDI mix or magnetic mini toggle, which basically selects what's happening through there. And then you have a piezo volume control, which has also got a push-pull pot on it, which creates a mid-boost or mid-cut on the piezo sound. And then you finally got one more mini toggle switch that selects a piezo mix or magnetic tone. And if that's not confusing enough, you can actually have all four systems going at one time. And anyhow, we are here to try and fit all of that into as small a cavity as humanly possible, made difficult by the way that the Fernandez sustainer is put together, but we're going to have a go. So let us move on to the template. Now, this is my standard Robert Fripp template, and this series of holes is for another build that had the sustainer system, which is this, and it also had the Roland GK3 MIDI system. It didn't have the 3-band EQ, and it did not have the piezo system, well, anything at all from Ghost. So I'm going to be ignoring those holes except for that standard volume, and trying to still fit it in that cavity because I don't want to take very much wood away from this body. The wood itself is way too pretty, and I like the tone of it. So that is your Fernandez sustainer. Now unfortunately it has two switches that are directly mounted onto a circuit board, and you have no way of safely at least removing those so that they're on leads. I've done it once, and the second time I tried it I destroyed the circuit board, and that was a very expensive experiment. Now what I'm going to do is move that to that area. I think the client doesn't want any controls too far up this way, and that fits quite nicely in that cavity. And it's now just a question of lining it up so that where the switches come through follows a nice curve, if at all possible. So yes, I'm happy with that. I think I'm going to grab Jessica. This is my bradawl, and I'm going to mark my corners and my holes and draw that onto the template. So once I've finalised what's going where, I'm going to mark the new holes in pen and drill them and make absolutely certain that I drill the right holes. It does get confusing working with several different templates. So I'm quite happy with that. Tracing paper is a must-have in any guitar building workshop. Now that is your master volume control, and I'm happy with where that is sitting. It is accessible with your finger as you play, and that's always something you've got to consider when you're designing a guitar. Now that is also a push-pull or a push-push pot, which is the active circuitry on-off, and that's fine. Now when you are designing something with a whole bunch of different separate systems, you want to try and keep their controls relatively close to each other. Now the active system has got 3 little pots as well as the switch, and those are effectively controlling the sound of the magnetic pickups. So I want to try and keep those in this area, and you can see these original holes actually follow quite a nice curve, and it's relatively subtle, but for me important that these things work like so. So what I'm going to do for now, I'm going to keep those original holes and say that's my active circuitry, taking up that triangle. We then have to work out what I want to do with the sustainer, and that needs to be here somewhere. So you've got your 2 toggle switches from your sustainer, and you basically just need a single volume control for that. So I suspect the volume would go either there or here. Okay. We also need 2 more pots for the MIDI volume and the piezo volume. Now, in order to keep everything looking nice and homogeneous, it would be you start from the pots because everything else is small. So that's your standard master volume. Let us say you got a piezo volume, your MIDI volume, your sustainer volume. that works quite well, doesn't it? So effectively we'll end up with 4 controls here. And then your toggles. MIDI up down, piezo mix mag, MIDI mix piezo. I like that. So what I'm thinking is I need to have a mini toggle here which selects magnetic, mix, piezo, and then here we have the piezo. So your toggle switch is actually physically pointing at the control of the system that you are selecting, and that's a little shortcut that will help my client keep in his mind what he's doing, at least for the first couple of months while he learns how to play this guitar. And then we'll have somewhere over here your sustainer volume, or sustainer intensity as it's called. That's obviously your 3 active electronics controls. And then we need a MIDI volume, a MIDI mini toggle, and that selects, how do I want to do it? Which would you use more? Up, down? I think that will be your MIDI up, down, and that will be your MIDI mix or piezo. And effectively that setting will select whichever one of these is selected on this switch. So it's very nice and flexible. And that all actually looks to fit in there quite nicely. Of course I've got a 3-way toggle up here, but there goes my phone. But all in all, I'm rather happy. So let me now, I need to do some working out to make it work. Haha, how's that? So because it really is rather important that everything's nice and evenly spaced. So we've got a nice pretty line going there, and a shorter but still pretty line going there. If you forget that there's in the back there, the switch, well, the electronics go up to here. I must say I'm rather happy. Oops. I just need to make sure those are even. That's right. See, I started writing that with pen and that was a bad idea. volume. On-off active. Magnetic. Mix. Piezo. Piezo volume. Sustainer volume. And then we'll have treble, mid, bass, MIDI volume, MIDI, mix, piezo, MIDI up down, sustainer on off, and sustainer mode switch. Now if I get rid of all the extra crap, and our client will now be able to see what is where. And it all feels rather nice. Happy day. And there we have it, all done, and well, hopefully the client is happy with this layout.